Hello Admirals and welcome back to my channel, where I talk to you about Battlefleet Gothic, the space fleet game based in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So, in my previous video on Rogue Traders, which is a starter fleet for them, I had a comment in the video asking about could I go into a little bit more detail on the refits that you can randomly roll for or even purchase for some points. And I thought that was a really good idea, and I agreed with it. Maybe I should do a little short video on that. So in this video, I'm just going to go into a little bit of those refits and where I think they could be used to maximize some fun and games as part of the Rogue Trader fleet. Over to that. As per my previous video, there are three essentially lists for Rogue Traders. You can have the Rogue Trader list itself, you've got the exploration fleets, and you've got Wolfpack fleets, which actually kind of act like pirates and things like that. But in the Rogue Trader fleet is where you'll find the Xenotech systems that you can add on. But typically Rogue Trader capital ships and escorts in the lore commonly bear refits from uncertain origin. They have been known to have various Xenos refits, Xenotech, and also various different Xenos, maybe even crew aboard. And then to represent that, you can actually then do these random skills as well as the Xenos systems that you can put on the ships. So you can randomly roll to see if the crew has a skill as well, and that's in addition, that's with the campaign rules. You roll in that sort of area. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that one in this one. I'm going to talk about the Xenotech systems that you can buy. So with this one, you can randomly roll to get a Xenotech system on the table for 15 points per cruiser or 5 points per escort. And then for additional 5 points, though, per ship, you as the player, the admiral, can select the technology that you want instead of re-rolling for it. You randomly roll a d6 for it. So basically, for 10 points for an escort or 20 points for a cruiser, you can choose to put one of 6 different Xenotech systems on it. And the beauty of these is I don't mind doing that. I think it's a well worth the some of them are worth it more than others, but I think they're well worth potentially doing that rather than randomly rolling. Randomly rolling, it adds a little bit of fun to it and adds a bit of narrative to it, but I always like to be able to control what I can control. And so paying those extra, 20 points isn't that bad in reality. A Xenos vessel, though, will cost you then, 60 points. The Rogue Trader cruiser goes up from 185 points by 20 points to, 205. But that's kind of in line with most typical cruisers. The Dauntless Light Cruiser goes from 125 points to 145, which is kind of in keeping with a strike cruiser around that sort of similar sort of points area. So it's not hugely dramatic, I don't think. But let's now have a look at the 6 different Xenotech systems that you can actually go with. So the 6 you've got are long-range sensors, targeting matrix, advanced shielding, ship defense grid, advanced drive technology, and gravitic thrusters. So I think a lot of people immediately kind of had their eyes drawn to the targeting matrix and advanced shielding. And they are probably 2 of my favorites, but they all have merits. So the long-range sensors can really add to that leadership. So if you really are worried about passing leadership roles, then having that, especially on some ships that you may need it, part of your strategy, maybe lock on, things like that you really want. But I think that's probably the least useful out of any of these, if I'm honest. The second one then, targeting matrix, vessels counting as closing within 30 is pretty massive. So if you put this on, say, the Rogue Trader cruiser, that's suddenly a weapons battery 10 within 30 that is ignoring your right column shift modifiers for greater than 30 centimeters and also then always closing. So you've got a weapons battery 10 always closing under 30, and then a weapons battery 6 over 45. So that doesn't have that right column shift. So suddenly you can reach out and hit things with more dice, and having something closing when you've got in will frighten pretty much any ship. A weapon, weapons battery 10 closing, and you maybe lock on that as well, suddenly becomes quite a powerful little ship. And if you've got a couple of those floating around, or even squadroned, maybe you put this on one of the light cruisers and have a squadron of them. Suddenly that can really add to your firepower, which otherwise the rogue traders sometimes could be seen as lacking in it. Advanced shielding, adding a shield to a ship, that is always useful. Maybe consider throwing it on an escort. A couple of escorts. Suddenly, with having 2 shields, become a lot more survivable. Just a thought. You never know, right? But adding in, obviously adding an extra shield onto a cruiser or even a light cruiser dramatically increases their survivability. So personally, I think those 2 are my favorites. The next one, the ship defense grid, is quite important as well. I think that's probably up there with the other 2 obvious ones. And the reason why that is because it adds +1 to the turret strength. And in this particular fleet list for the rogue traders, you don't have access to a lot of ordnance. You have no carriers. So the ability to be able to put extra turrets onto ships will dramatically improve their ability to survive in the fight against multiple waves of ordnance coming at you, say from Chaos or even Eldar and Tau fleets, or even worse, Tyranids. I am a fan of adding speed and things like that to any ship. I always do enjoy that, but with kind of these ones with the advanced drive technology, which adds you the +5 and improves your head full orders, and then the gravitic thrusters being able to double the maximum rate of your normal turn, useful in scenarios maybe when you're coming up against faster opponents like Necrons and Eldar. They would be something that I would be looking at. But typically with the rogue trader fleets, you're using them like Imperials, so you want to keep the ships together. You don't want ships flying off on their own, doing their own thing, I don't think, personally. But certainly those 2, when you're facing against faster opponents, would definitely be useful. Suddenly being able to double your rate of normal turn to turn into an Eldar cruiser that thinks they've got away, massive, massive opportunity. So I will just note, admirals, that these Xenotech systems need to be on rogue trader ships in that rogue trader fleet. There's no putting those on, the exploration fleets and adding them onto Lunars and Carnages and things like that, or Tyrants. That would be pretty devastating. But certainly really, really worthwhile putting them onto those rogue trader cruisers and light cruisers. I think really improves both their potential fire output, but also their ability to survive in the fight as well. And I'm going to put my money where my mouth is on this one, and I'm going to give the rogue trader fleet a go with some of these Xenotech systems incorporated into it against my good mate BFG Noob tomorrow, when we're going to be facing off. I don't know who I'm going to be fighting as well. It could be anyone from, I believe he said Dark Eldar, Craftworld Eldar, I think he said, and maybe even Nurgle Chaos. So a lot for me to think about there, and we'll go from there. But I'm going to give these a go myself, and I'll come back to you maybe on my website with a little bit of a narrative battle report, per se. Let's see how they go. But until then, thanks very much for watching, Admirals, and I'll see you in the next video.